pleased to have Elizabeth Sharland with us this evening as part of our series that we started this year, Life Upon the Wicked Stage, New Books in the Performing Arts. We're always pleased when an author does some of the research for their projects here at the Library for the Performing Arts and takes advantage of our very rich and wonderful collections. Elizabeth is author of Behind the Doors of Notorious Covent Gardens, which she will discuss tonight, and she's brought with her some wonderful guests to entertain you. She has written 10 books about theater and food, including The British on Broadway, Passionate Pilgrimages, From Chopin to Coward, A Theatrical Feast of New York and A Theatrical Feast of Paris. Her latest novel, On the Riviera, has just been published by iUniverse. Elizabeth is the food and entertainment editor for Palm Beach Society magazine, and she frequently lectures on transatlantic crossings on the Cunard line. That's a job I think I would like. So if you would please help me welcome Elizabeth Sharland.
Great pleasure to be here at the Lincoln Center. I'm absolutely thrilled. And thank you so much for coming out on this rainy night. It really is a little bit like London. I wanted to say, come on, we're all going to London tonight. But then I thought, well, it will be raining over there too, I'm sure. And rather than Covent Garden, London and Covent Garden, which is the most cultural heart of London. I have so much to tell you about. It's only going to take 3 hours, so I hope you will cancel your dinner reservations. There's so much to tell you. It's such a historic area of London. You know, up till the 1970s, it was a fruit market, a fruit, vegetable, and flower market. The whole piazza was full of fruit and vegetables. You probably remember the opening scenes of My Fair Lady. And then in the 1970s, they removed the whole market and put it in the suburbs because of traffic congestion. And so the whole area became little boutiques and pubs where all the actors went and drank after the theater, and the buskers and the musicians and the artists, and the piazza itself is now a performance space. So it's a really vibrant area, and it's only 1 square mile. And in that 1 square mile, you have about 12 great theaters. This is the golden age of the West End. You have the Coliseum Theatre, which is the home of the English National Opera, and of course the Grand Royal Opera House, which is the home of the opera company and the London Ballet. In fact, I hope she's here tonight. We have a ballerina with us tonight who has actually danced in the ballet on stage at the Royal Opera House. Barbara, are you here? Oh, stand up. Barbara. And I just think it's wonderful because she was there. She probably saw as a student Margot Fontaine and Rudolph Nureyev, and of course all the other great people that came in the Opera House: Zeffirelli, Maria Callas, Joan Sutherland. There's marvelous anecdotes. And I wanted to write my book about people and the places, because in 100 years' time, a lot of these places will be forgotten, and a lot of the people will be forgotten. For instance, who remembers Henry Irving anymore? He was a great actor. And Ellen Terry. He took over the great Lyceum Theatre, which is still standing, and he became famous as an actor-manager. And today, the same theatre, being through the war, 2 world wars, is now owned by Cameron Mackintosh, and he puts on Andrew Lloyd Webber's musicals. In fact, there's a rumor around town. He said to Andrew Webber, "Come on, Andrew, I'm putting on this new musical, And I need 2 new songs by the end of the week, end of next week. I know you can do it, Andrew. And Andrew said, well, and Cameron McIntosh said, I know you can do it, it won't take a lot out of you. And Andrew said, no, but it'll take a lot out of Beethoven, Bach, and Brahms. Ever. Now we have to welcome some really wonderful special guests. I wanted to have them share the atmosphere of this wonderful place. And Steve Ross is going to commence with some busker songs from Covent Garden. Please welcome Steve.
The first songs are from Noel Coward's show, The Girl Who Came to Supper. They're very much in the style of the music hall songs that he grew up listening to. London is a little bit of old, nobody can deny that's true. Bells, Big Ben, out to leave the dawn again, and if you visit a monkey in the zoo, bring a banana, feed the ducks in Battersea Park, and take a trip to Kew. It only costs a tanner there and back. Watch the lads in the palace yard, rip the colours and change the guard, and don't forget your brolly and your rag. And I like to mention London is a place where you can call right round and have a cozy cup of tea. And know what's what, then London town is a jolly place to be. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in a mild late winter evening, but in New York City. But I'd like now to take you to this imaginary but very present pub that Noel Coward came up with. I'm sure it was in Covent Garden. Now, some of my most sophisticated audiences, which you would be a number of, have been known in this little pub song to sway discreetly from side to side. You're allowed. Saturday night at the Rose and Crown is just a nice Saturday evening. There's tinkers and tailors and soldiers and sailors all out for a bit of a spree. If you found that you're weary of life with your trouble and strife, and the kids have got you down, it will all come right. Saturday night at the Rose and Crown. Saturday night at the Rose and Crown is just a place to be. Oh, there's tinkers and tailors and soldiers and sailors all out for a bit of spree. If you find that you're weary of life with your trouble and strife, and the kids have got you down, it will all come right come Saturday night at the Rose and Crown.
So, to tell you how the book got written, I lived in Covent Garden for over 20 years, and I was walking around the streets of Covent Garden, and I came across the Theatre Museum. Now, the Theatre Museum was a museum for all the British theatre that was there. Unfortunately, it's closed, but 10 years ago, I went in there, I saw all the exhibitions, the costumes of all these famous legends, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to find out the personal lives of these people, find out what they had to sacrifice to have such wonderful careers on stage. So I wrote a proposal to the museum, and I said, please, could I do it in the auditorium? Something like this. And they said, yes, you can. So I got Corinne Redgrave and his mother and a few other people to get together, and then it grew, and I thought, I'm going to make this a showcase for young actors, and ones that have just graduated from drama school and cannot get a job, cannot get an audition, cannot get an agent, and they're all over. They come out of drama schools and they can't get any work at all. So I put an ad in the stage, which is equivalent of backstage here, and suddenly I got hundreds of replies of all these young graduates. And I tried to write them all, some of them from all over the country. One boy wrote to me, he said, I am 6 feet tall, I weigh 300 pounds, and I can lift a grand piano in my teeth. So anyway, we did these showcases, and some of them were very good, and some of them were not so good. And then I had to deal with stage mothers. So Steve has a rather nice song about it.
One of Coward's most famous, Creed occur, as he calls it. Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. The profession is overcrowded and the struggle's pretty tough. And admitting the fact, she's burning to act. That isn't quite enough. She has nice hands. To give the wretched girl her due, but don't you think her bust is too developed for her age? I repeat, Mrs. Worthington, too sweet, Mrs. Worthington, don't put your daughter on the stage. Regarding yours, dear Mrs. Worthington of Wednesday, the 23rd, although your baby may be keen on the stage career, how can I make it clear that this is not a good idea for her child? Dear Mrs. Worthington, it's on the face of it absurd. Her personality is not in reality inviting enough, exciting enough for this particular sphere. Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. She's a bit of an ugly duckling, you must honestly confess, and the width of her seat would surely defeat her chances of success. It's a loud voice, and though it's not exactly flat, she'll need a little more than that to earn a living wage. On my knees, Mrs. Worthington, please, Mrs. Worthington, don't put your daughter on the stage. Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington. Do not place that child on the stage. Though they said at the School of Acting, she was lovely as Peer Gynt. I feel on the whole, an Angie new role would emphasize her squint. She's a big girl. And though her teeth are fairly good, she's not the type I ever would be eager to engage. No more buts, Mrs. Worthington. Nuts, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. She's a vile girl, and uglier than mortal sin, and look at her as put me in a tearing bloody rain. That sufficed, Mrs. Worthington. Christ, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage.
Most notorious part of Covent Garden. We've been going back to Highwomen, and this is before Shakespeare's day. It is so old, this whole area, the cobblestones are still there. And there were very notorious characters that lived in this theatrical district of Covent Garden. And I have two special guests to tell you about some of the most notorious. Would you please welcome Miss Corinne Orr and Eric Kuzmuk.
Nell Gwynn, probably the best known actress in the Restoration Theatre, started her career by selling oranges in Drury Lane, which is where the famous Theatre Royal stands in Covent Garden. She gave up the theatre to become a famous courtesan. She became the mistress of Charles II, to name but one. And she lived in Henrietta Street in Covent Garden.
Evan Keene's hours of triumph on the stage were matched by his wild debauches off stage. which led to his death at 45. Coleridge said that to see him act was like reading Shakespeare by flashes of lightning. Offstage, he was all passion, all energy, all relentless will. Jumping on his horse, he would gallop down Piccadilly and the Strand to the Wolves Club and the brothels. Prostitutes came to his dressing room between the acts, so the curtain could not rise on the next scene until he had done with them. Often he was too drunk to get to the theater at all. On tour in America, his drunken behavior scandalized his audiences. He was, however, the greatest tragic actor of his time.
Lily Langtry, daughter of the Dean of Jersey, was known as Jersey Lily. She became the mistress of the Prince of Wales and subsequently King Edward VII. She prospered under his patronage and ended up having her own theater as well as a large racing stable. They dined at Wolves. They used to rendezvous upstairs in the restaurant at Covent Garden, and the private alcove where they dined can still be seen today. There's a second front door which was especially made for them and is still there. Rule's is the oldest restaurant in Covent Garden and is still very popular with the members of the theatrical profession. It was Graham Greene's favorite restaurant, and there's a private dining room upstairs named after him, as well as one for the late John Betjeman, former poet laureate.
Henry Irving. Henry Irving was the first actor to be knighted. He became famous when he took over the management of the Great Lyceum Theatre in Covent Garden in 1876. He played all the leading Shakespearean roles, as well as directing them up till his death in 1905. However, his personal life was not happy. On the night of his greatest triumph, as Matthias in The Bells, he was riding home in his carriage with his wife, and as they passed Hyde Park Corner, she said to him,
"I hope you're not going to go on making a fool of yourself the rest of your life."
Well, it was the night he left her and their marriage. He never spoke to her again, but always left seats for her in a box on every opening night. He was a magnificent showman. His best Shakespearean roles were Shylock, Iago, and Benedict.
When Irving invited Ellen Terry to become his leading lady of the Lyceum Theatre, a great partnership began. However, George Bernard Shaw, who fell in love with Ellen, claimed that Irving wasted Ellen's talent and her genius, and he contrasted them by saying she, all brains and sympathy, scattering them everywhere and on everybody, he, all self, and concentrating that self on a stage as on a pedestal.
Sarah Siddons became the leading tragic actress on the London stage in 1775. She had a reputation of personal coldness, and Lord Byron said, "I would sooner think of going to bed with the Archbishop of Canterbury." Nevertheless, she gave her husband 7 children and ended up supporting all of them as she continued her career until the age of 76.
Actors are wonderful people. They're charming and talented too. Their law is the law of the jungle. They really belong in a zoo. Actors are simply delightful. They give all they have to their art. Don't say that they're vicious and spiteful. They're really just children at heart. Actors are given to whoring. It says in a book I once read. But what makes them really so boring is they tell you about it in bed. Actors have voices like thunder and oceans of gall. Right now I'm beginning to wonder if actors are people at all. Actors make terrible lovers. They're faithless, perverse, and no good. And would I be caught in the spotlight? You bet your sweet life I would.
Oh, I'm cherishing a secret in me bosom about this dreadful stage life that I lead. I've heard it said that pros are decent people, but according to the papers that I read, both actresses and actors are dead wrong'uns. Whether from the palace or the hippodrome, the chaps I meet outside know I'm an actor, but I never breathe a word of it at home, so me mother doesn't know I'm on the stage. It would break her poor old heart if she found out. She knows I'm a deserter from the Scottish Fusiliers. She knows I stole a blind man's can. That got me 7 years. She knows I've been connected with a gang of West End pests, and the police have had me twice inside the cage. And she knows I mix with ladies that have got a shady past. But me mother doesn't know I'm on the stage. Sometimes she sees the powder on me clothing, and then it's such a nuisance to explain. If she knew it were poor powder, she'd go crazy. Of course, I have to tell her, it's cocaine. The day she met me out with Gladys Cooper, she started screaming murder and police and would have caused a dreadful scene in public. So I told her that the girl was Crippen's niece, 'cause me mother doesn't know I'm on the stage. And when I draw 600 quid a week, if she knew where it came from, she'd shoot me like a dog. So I told her I stole the money box from an Irish synagogue. She can think that I'm a murderer before she'll know the truth. I'll have to have respect for her old age. And she knows that I'm a bigamist, a blackguard, and a crook. But thank heaven she don't know I'm on the stage.
You have them coming to the stage and then they have to go back home and then something happens, something dramatic happens, and you know Noel Coward produced and wrote all these musicals, and these things were happening all the time, and finally he wrote a song about it. And why must the show go on?
Well, for some years it's been sodden with tears on behalf of the acting impression. Each star playing a part seemed to expect a Purple Heart. It's unorthodox to be born in a box, but it needn't become an obsession. Let's hope we have no more to plague us than to choose a night in Las Vegas. When I think of physicians and mathematicians who don't earn a quarter of the dough, when I look at the faces of people in Macy's, there's one thing I'm burning to know. Why must the show go on? It can't be all that indispensable. To me, it really isn't sensible on the whole to play a leading role while fighting those tears you can't control. But kick up your legs for drowning the dregs of sorrow's bitter cup. Because you've read some idiot has said the curtain must go up. I'd like to know why a star takes vows. Let me just return from burying her spouse. Hooray, Hoopa-Doopers, go home and dry your tears. Gallant old troopers, you've bored us all for years. So if you're wet through, so blue and thoroughly all be gone, why must the show go on? Let me, why must the show go on? Why must the show go on? The rule is surely not immutable. It might be wiser than most people just to close. If you are in the throes of personal grief or private woes, why stifle a sob when doing your job when it could use your head? You go on and grab a comfortable cab and go straight home to bed because you're not giving us that much fun. That laugh, clown laugh, routine's been overdone. Hats off to show folk for smiling when they're blue, but more cavial folk are sitting for smiling. If you lose hope, take 2 locks up in the jar. Why must the show go on? I really ask you.
Olivier, Vivian Lee, Ralph Richardson, John Gielgud, they all used to meet at Rule's restaurant after the show. And it was just that era of glamour and luxury that we will never see again. And of course, Noel Coward was the epitome of all this. And he was at his prime. And we are very, very privileged to have one of his leading ladies with us tonight. Would you please welcome Miss Tammy Ryan.
dream is past forgetting. This sweet memory across the years will come to me. Though my world may go awry, in my heart shall ever lie just the echo of a sigh. Hello. What?
Life is very rough and tumble.
No,
I believe you said.
I believe that's true. Life can be so rough and tumble for a humble these years. One can betray one's troubles never, whatever occurs. Night after night, have to look right, whether you're well or ill. People must laugh their fill. You mustn't sleep till dawn comes creeping. Though I never really grumble, life's a jumble indeed. And in my efforts to succeed, I've had to formulate this creed. I believe in doing what I can, crying when I must, laughing when I choose. Hey, oh, if love were all, I should be lonely. I believe the more you love a man, the more you give your trust, the more you're bound to lose. Although when shadows fall, I think if only somebody splendid really needed me, someone affectionate and dear, cares would be ended if I knew that he wanted to have me near. But I believe that since my life began, the most I've had is just a talent to amuse. Hey, oh, if love were all. Hey, oh, if love were all.
One of Noel Coward's biggest competitors was a composer called Ivor Novello, and they worked side by side. Ivor did all his own musicals, he wrote them and he starred in them and he produced them. In fact, he put them on at the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane, and I'm sure some of you remember the music from Dancing Years and all the ones that he composed. He even had a shipwreck on the stage at Drury Lane, something like the Titanic. So they were like Zeffirelli musicals in the 1930s. It was just incredible. And some of his songs last till today, and I think you will remember some of the ones that Steve is going to play for us.
He had a huge hit as a very young man with a song that became emblematic for a war-weary nation in the First World War. Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning. All your lads are far away, they dream of home. There's a lost silver lining through the dark clouds shining. Turn the dark clouds inside out till the boys come home. Like most of the working composers in the 20s, on both sides of the Atlantic, the review format beckoned. They wrote these occasional songs, often for very specific personalities. This was a song introduced by, as it were, the London equivalent of Fred Astaire, the very dapper Mr. Jack Buchanan, and with words by a very English-sounding gentleman, Mr. Dion Titteridge. I seem to be the victim of a cruel jest. It dogs my footsteps with the one I love the best. She's just the sweetest thing that I have ever known. But still, we never get the chance to be alone. My car will meet her, and her mother comes too. It's a two-seater, so her mother comes too. At Sirola, when I am free, for dinner, supper, or tea, she loves to sherry with me, and her mother does too. We buy her trousseau, and her mother comes too. Asked not to do so, still her mother comes too. She simply can't take a snub. I go and sulk at the club, then have a bath and a rub, and her brother comes too. There may be times when couples need a chaperone, but mothers ought to learn to leave a chap alone. They ought to have a heart and use some common sense. For three's a crowd, and more, it's treble the expense. We lunch at Maxine's, and her mother comes too. How large a snack seems when her mother comes too. And when they're visiting me, we finish afternoon tea. She loves to sit on my knee, and her mother does too. To golf we started, and her mother came. 3 bags I carted, and her mother came too. She fainted just off the tee. My darling whispered to me, Jack, dear, at last we are free. Then her mother came too.
Then, of course, we had World War II. And believe it or not, most of the theatres stayed open. They had the doodle bombs coming over, and then they had the Blitz. And Noel Coward and Ivor Novello were still there every night on stage. Unbelievable. One night, Noel Coward was dining at the Savoy Hotel in the Strand, and a bomb hit the hotel. It shook the diners in the dining room, but did no damage, but it cast a pall all over the room. So Noel Coward immediately got up and started singing and entertaining the diners and cheering them up. And then he asked if anybody else could sing. And he asked for volunteers. And this very tall, beautiful, slim woman, young woman, walked up to him in a long white dress and said, "I'm Judy Campbell." And that's how they first met. And Judy became his leading lady in several plays that he wrote. And in fact, she also was a singer, of course, and this is the song that she made her own and she's always known for this song.
When two lovers meet in Mayfair, so the legend tells, songbirds sing, winter turns to spring. Every winding street in Mayfair falls beneath the spell. I know such enchantment can be, 'cause it happened one evening to me. That certain night, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I'm perfectly willing to swear that when you turned and smiled at me, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The moon that lingered over London town, poor puzzled moon, he wore a frown. How could he know we two were so in love? The whole darn world seemed upside down. The streets of town were paved with stars. It was such a romantic affair. And when you turned and said to me, nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Our homeward step was twice as light as the tap dancing feet of a stand. And when we kissed and said goodnight, nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I know, 'cause I was there that night in Berkeley Square.
And then in my book, I have a chapter on the ghosts of Covent Garden. They do exist. There's one very famous one in the #1 dressing room at the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane. A friend of mine who was acting, and he had the #1 dressing room in the Theatre Royal. You know Barry?
Yep.
Did he tell you this story?
No.
He was about to make his entrance he was in Anything Goes, and the door of the dressing room stuck. He couldn't get it open, and everybody else was on stage. He banged on the door. The stage manager wasn't there, and he could hear his cue coming up, and he couldn't get out. And he knew about the ghost. They told him about the ghost. So finally, he managed to see a little storm window, an exit window, and he scrambled up and got through the window, down the fire escape, into the stage, around backstage, because he had to make an entrance on the other side of the stage, and he came on and did his number, and they were all still on stage, and he left the stage manager was there, and the door was wide open when he got back to the dressing room. So that's one of the ghosts. The other ghost is by the stage door of the Strand Theatre, where an actor was stabbed by another actor, and he walks. Alan Dent, he's in my book. These are a lot of characters on my book that I hope people remember. Alan Dent was a drama critic for the Daily Telegraph. He also wrote a book about Covent Garden, and he said he had several times seen this old lady walking down the Strand in 18th century costume. And he could tell she was old by the way she was walking. So one day he saw her and he thought, I'm going to see what she looks like. So he walked very quickly past her, very quickly, and turned around to see what she looked like. She was not there. There was no doorway she could have gone into. There was nothing she could have gone into. So later in the day, he went into a pub nearby. He was telling the bartender, and he said, Oh, you've seen old Nellie. She's around, and there's a story about who Nellie was. And so there's a whole area of Covent Garden that is haunted. Which brings me to the Actors' Church. There's an Actors' Church, and maybe some of you know it. It's the church where they have all the memorial services for the famous actors who die, and they have plaques at the back of the church with all the names, Vivian Lee, Ralph Richardson, Charlie Chaplin, they're all there. And it's a beautiful old church, and it's really worth seeing. Ellen Terry's ashes are in a little casket on the wall, and it's a really peaceful haven right in the middle of Covent Garden. And there's a lovely garden, and there's memorial benches around there, which are beautiful, just really lovely. And the back of the church has these Greek columns. It's the portico of the church. And that is where you'll see in the movie My Fair Lady, at the very beginning of that film, maybe it was made from a set or copied, but that's where the first part of My Fair Lady takes us to. Now that's another musical that was a great hit at the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane. And I must tell you about a joke. Maybe you've all heard it, but well, it's not a joke, it's a true story. Rex Harrison, you remember, played Henry Higgins. And it was totally sold out. It was sold out. You couldn't get a seat for 6 months. And then one night, Rex was playing on stage, and he saw an empty seat in the orchestra. And he said to the stage manager, house manager, at the intermission, would you go and ask why that seat is empty? And so the house manager went up to this lady sitting next to the seat and said, Madam, do you know why the seat is empty? And she said, oh, yes, I do. She said, I bought these seats 3 months ago for my husband and myself, but unfortunately, my husband died 3 days ago. And I said, oh dear, I'm so sorry to hear that, madam. Don't you have a friend? Couldn't you have brought a friend? She said, well, no, they're all at the funeral. Anyway, I want to finish with Steve doing some wonderful medleys from that show, My Fair Lady.
finest actor singers I know is here to do a couple of songs sung by Little Joe Sirola. Please come on.
Well, Eliza should be about in a few minutes. You ought to be good for half a crown for a father what loves her.
Loves her, you never ain't give her nothing.
I'll never give you nothing, I'll give you everything. I'll give you the greatest gift any human being can give to another. Life! I introduced you to this here planet, I did. With all of its wonders and all of its marvels. The sun that shines, the moon that glows. I park to walk through on a fine spring night. Covent Gardens! The whole city of London to stroll about selling her blooming flowers. I'll give her all this, and then I disappears and leaves her on her own to enjoy it. Now, if Daddy went off a crown now and again, I'll take off my belt and give her what for. The Lord above gave man with arm of iron, so we could do his job and never shirk. The Lord above gave man an arm of iron, but with a little bit of luck, with a little bit of luck, someone else will do the blinking work. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of luck, you'll never work. The Lord above made liquor for temptation, to see if man could turn away from sin. The Lord above made liquor for temptation, but with a little bit of luck, with a little bit of luck, when temptation comes, you'll give right in. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of luck, you'll give right in. Oh, you can walk the straight and narrow, but with a little bit of luck, you'll run amok. The gentle sex was made for man to man, to share his nest and see his food is cooked. The gentle sex was made for man to marry, but with a little bit of luck, with a little bit of luck, you can have it all and not get hooked. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of luck, you won't get hooked. They're always throwing goodness at you, but with a little bit of luck, you'll run amok. A man was made to help support his children, which is the right and proper thing to do. A man was made to help support his children, but with a little bit of luck, with a little bit of luck, they'll go out and start supporting you. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of luck, they'll work for you. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of blue man luck. There are drinks and girls all over London. And I gotta track them down in just a few more hours. I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Pull out the stopper, let's have a whopper, but get me to the church on time. I gotta be there in the morning, spruced up and looking at me prime. Girls, come and kiss me, show how you miss me, but get me to the church on time. If I am dancing, roll up the floor. If I am whistling, shoot me out the door. For I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Feather and Tammy, pull out the army, but get me to the church. Get me to the church. For God's sake, get me to the church on time.
Yes. And we just finished with this wonderful song by Noel Coward.
Yes, before we do it, I want very much to share because I'm so proud of it.
A couple of years ago, I was given this beautiful green smoking jacket, and it turns out that it was owned and made for Noel Coward.
Oh my God. Speaking of songs that inspire, we think of Coward as, of course, the brilliant, waspish patter songs and the sentimental waltzes and heartfelt ballads, but he did write because he was a great patriot of his country. He wrote a song that sustained so many people's emotions and imaginations in the Second World War, and here it is. There's a little city flower every spring unfreezing, growing in the crevices by some London railing. Though it has a Latin name in town and countryside, we in England call it London Pride. London Pride has been handed down to us. London Pride is a flower that's free. London Pride means our own dear town to us, and our pride it forever will be. Oh, Liza, see the tops of arrows, vegetable barrels with the fruit and pie. Oh, Liza, little London sparrows, Covent Garden market, where the costers cry. Cockney feet mark the beat of history. Every street pins a memory down. Nothing else